Today's Thursday, May 15th, 2025. Well, this morning I made the best trade I've ever made, and then 30 minutes later, the worst trade I ever made. My first trade of the day, I got in as pre-market. I caught a pretty good chunk of a front line on a breaking news stock, and I made 115 bucks, which was about 4.3% move. The next trade I got in on, I was so excited after that. I got in on one. I had been watching it. It was another frontline move. I was watching it. I was hesitating on getting in. I finally got in at the $1 mark, and of course that's not a great place to get in, and I ended up losing quite a bit on it. And I went from up 115 to down 22 bucks. So that put me in an awesome mood. I kind of took a break from the pre-market, and I told myself I wasn't going to make any more moves until after the bell. And I told myself I was going to be hyper cautious, very selective, just trying to make sure I got in and got green and got out on a trade, trying to set up kind of a A+ setup, minimal risk move, and ended up being so picky that I just didn't friggin' make any moves worth talking about. I made one move. My third move of the day got me from red 22 to about $7 in the green. I still had about a quarter of my account left, so I thought I could try and make another 10 or 15 bucks to get me close to a 1% day. And I ended up getting in on a trade, just a little dip trade. Being hyper cautious, I was waiting for confirmation candles, and once the volume's dead on the day, the confirmation candle is most of the move. So then that's what ended up happening. I waited for a confirmation candle, and that was pretty much the whole move. And by the time that candle was done forming, the only way to go was back down. So I ended up losing on that trade, and I went from 7 bucks in the green to I think $18 in the red. So who knows? It was just a total seesaw of a day. Crazy high emotions there in the pre-market because I made such a great move, and then I hesitated myself into a red move, which has been the bane of my trading career so far. Hesitation. It is what it is. Minus 18 on the day. That's not so bad. I can move on and continue with life. At least I didn't blow it up or anything. It makes me wonder if I should have just stopped after the big 4% move. But anyway, that's how my day went. All right, this was the first move of Thursday morning. This turned out to be the best trade I've ever made. I ended up catching this chart during that initial frontline move. I first saw this chart during this big green candle here. I knew that I needed to wait for some sort of micro pullback. There had already been one. I didn't know about this until after that micro pullback, so I waited for a second one, which I got here on this kind of mostly like a doji candle here. I ended up getting in at the close of this candle, entering here. I got in at 50 cents. I rode it through this candle and this next candle. We had a little bit of a topping tail, which concerned me, and then boom, we had a doji candle. I had a very strong profit. I was up 10 cents at this point, and with a cheap stock in my small account, that was a huge win for me. I went ahead and exited on this doji. The way this candle was moving made me think that it was going to start downward trending, which I predicted correctly. So I made a very good exit. I'm happy with my exit. I got a lot of profit on that. Like I said, 10 cents per share. That was my best trade I've ever executed. The biggest green trade I've ever made. I was up $127 on that trade. I was very happy with that. I had an excellent entry, very safe entry. Very happy with the entry. And again, my exit, I waited like I needed to. I committed and I held until I felt like the move was kind of over for now. And I did really good on that. I'm very happy with this trade. Second trade of Thursday morning. This is a trade that really shit the bed on me and ruined my great trade that I made about 30 minutes before this. I didn't end up seeing this chart until about this second or third candle or so. Right here, we're flirting with the 70-cent mark. I was watching it, waiting for an entry. This candle topped out around 82 or 83. I was really wanting to get in at that point, but I knew it had kind of expressed a huge move already. I wasn't quite sure that that was going to be a good entry. Looking at it now, obviously I should have made the entry at that point. What I ended up doing was waiting for a little micro pullback. Never really had one, so I just went ahead and got in on this next huge green candle. I ended up getting in right at the $1 mark, which, looking back now, sounds like the worst time of all time to make an entry at the full dollar. Of course, it ended up biting me in the ass. I actually got in at 940 shares right at $1 even. It ended up spiking to 115 for just a flash of a second, and then at that point I was already in the red, and all we could do was go down from there. I waited. It hadn't gone huge red yet. I was still kind of in a safe window for an acceptable loss, and then we just totally flushed down. By the time I got out of here, I got filled at 85 cents. I lost 15 cents a share on this move, which took my whole profit from my best trade ever, the one move previously. I went from up 127 to now, after this trade, I was down $22. I am not thrilled with this move. I hesitated when I felt good about the trade. I still hesitated, which is something I have still need to do some work on. If I would have got in when I wanted to around the 80-cent mark, I would have felt way better selling at the dollar mark, which would have been 20 cents of profit, which would have been a huge move. That would have given me close to around 150, 160 bucks. But instead, I hesitated. I got in at the wrong time. And then instead of getting out early, once the trade went the wrong way, I held, thinking maybe it could, start another upward swing, which it didn't, of course. So I should have taken the loss at a small loss. And I would have still been very green on the day after that great first move. But instead, I waited, and then it just totally shit the bed and ended up going huge red. So at this point, after this trade, I had my very first trade, which was the best trade I've ever made. My second trade, this move right here, the worst trade I've ever made. So boom, back to back within 30 minutes of each other. That's just how it goes sometimes, I guess. This was my third move of the day on Thursday morning. At this point, I was down about $20 after my huge green and then my huge red trade. I told myself I was going to wait till the market opened and just really settle in and wait for an A+ setup, so I wasn't going to lose any more. All I really wanted to do was get in, get green, and get out once I saw a decent setup. I ended up finding one on TAOP. This is another cheap stock. I was trading it around the 30-cent mark. It had a nice climb here. I ended up catching this chart, I think with this kind of first big green candle here. I watched it climb through here. We had a little bit of a pullback. I clicked buy here. I ended up getting in at 34 cents. I held it through this next candle and hoping that it would just kind of keep climbing. This red kind of huge wicked doji candle was a big red flag to me. I went ahead and got out there. On this trade, I made about 1.5 cents per share, which brought me from negative 22 back up to like $10 in the green. And I felt pretty good about that. It was a little snipe of a move. I wish I would have caught it better here towards the beginning of this move. But needless to say, it was an easy trade to get green and get out. And I made some profit. Went back to the green side for the day. My fourth and final trade on Thursday ended up being a loser. No one to blame but myself here. And it brought me from, I was green about 10 bucks back into the red by like 18 bucks. We had a little bit of a dip and coming back up to meet the 9 EMA. I got in on this candle. I got in pretty high on this candle, hoping that we'd have another 2 or 3 green candles and just kind of a steady 9 EMA climb. Well, that's not what happened. Here I got filled at 30 cents on the mark, which is basically the top of this green candle. I held it for a few candles. I mean, I was in the green here for a couple candles by about a half a cent, which looking back now I should have taken. And then we started going sideways, and then boom, the big red flush. I ended up getting out there. I lost 2 cents per share. I got filled on the exit here at 28 cents. I mean, looking back now, I could have gotten out with a break even, if not a small amount of profit anywhere over these candles here. So lesson learned, you know, I've committed to making entries. I'm trying to get better at committing to entries. And then the second part of that is committing to holding through the move. And there was enough going on here that should have indicated there wasn't much of a move to be made here. I mean, we went sideways for basically 4 candles. The volume dropped on each candle. This doji would have been, you know, the perfect time to get out and still be break even, if not a little bit of profit. And the next one, I had a full another minute to make that decision, and I still waited, knowing with the volume being the way it was, the only option for this stock at this particular time was to kind of flush down and get back below the 9 EMA. So, lesson learned there. End of the day at minus $18. Not even worth getting upset about. Just little habits that I could have done better that could have helped staying in the green, where instead I kind of went against the grain and it cost me.